Hey guys, so yesterday we used SOHCAHTOA, right? Sine equals opposite over hypotenuse, cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So yesterday we were finding side lengths. Today we're going to be finding the measures of the angles. And we're still going to be using SOHCAHTOA for that. So the first thing, this first part just says find the angle measure. So we want to know what angle you have to take the tangent of to get this number. Now normally if you wanted to get A alone, you would divide by whatever was here, but you can't divide by the word tan. Okay, in your calculator, if you look, right below sine, cosine, and tangent, those are inverse, right? And that's how you undo. It's kind of like adding undoes subtraction, multiplying and dividing, sine and sine inverse. They kind of are opposites, so they kind of undo each other. So if we're back on this worksheet, if you want to get rid of the tangent, you've got to take the tangent inverse. So tangent inverse of both sides. Okay, so this will cancel out. You'll be left with A. But here is what you have to type in the calculator. The tangent inverse of 2.0503. So we're back on our calculator. We want the tangent inverse of 2.0503. Was that what it was? 0503. And that gives you 63.9, which makes about 64 degrees. 64 degrees. So we're going to come back here. We know angle A is 64 degrees. All right, so that's what you're doing on this part. Just take your inverse. And this is just teaching you how to take the inverse. Then when you get down here, you're actually finding an angle measure. We're going to do it the same way we did it yesterday. Let me make this a little bit smaller. Okay. So you're still going to label your hypotenuse, give it an H. Here's my angle, travel across, that's my opposite. And there's your adjacent right next to it. I have opposite and hypotenuse, right? I don't really care about adjacent. It's here, but I don't want it. I don't need it. So I'm not going to use it. So when we're talking about SOHCAHTOA, right? Opposite and hypotenuse tells me to use sine. So we're going to say sine of my angle, which I don't know what it is, equals opposite over hypotenuse, 51 over 55. And then this is where that last lesson came in. If you want to get x alone, we've got to take the sine inverse. So take the sine inverse of both sides, you'll be left with x equals the sine inverse of 51 divided by 55. And you're actually going to type that right in your calculator. Right? So we're going to come back here, we're going to clear this out. We want the sine inverse of 51 divided by 55. 51, oops, where'd that go? There we go, 51 divided by 55. Nope. There it goes. And we get 68.0 degrees. 68 degrees. So x equals 68 degrees. So we are finding angle measures here. So whenever you're finding an angle measure, you know you're going to be using sine inverse, cosine inverse, tangent inverse. Let's find a different one. How about number 14? So here you have hypotenuse. Here's my angle, travel across, that's my opposite, which means this is adjacent. So we have hypotenuse and adjacent. We don't really care about opposite, so we're not going to use it. Adjacent and hypotenuse, we come back here. Adjacent and hypotenuse, I'm using cosine. So cosine of my angle, which I don't know it, equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And again, to get rid of cosine, to get x alone, we're going to take the cosine inverse of both sides. And you just let your calculator do the work here. So we're going to come back, cosine inverse. Why is it not let me clear? Cosine inverse of 52 divided by 56. 50. Come on. 52 divided by 56. And we get 21.8, right? Because that 8 tells me to round this up. 21.8. Let me see what the directions say. Nearest degree. Nearest degree, so we want a whole number actually. So we're at 21, and the 0.7 tells me to round this up to 22 degrees. All right, so that's what you're doing on this. You're just taking those inverses. You're still using what we used yesterday, sine, cosine, tangent, and you'll finish off this. Now I will tell you, when you get down here and there's 3 angles, just pick 2. So if you want to use sine, you could use sine, cosine, or tangent in here. Just if you want to use sine, use opposite and hypotenuse. If you want to do cosine, use adjacent and hypotenuse. So don't freak out if there's too much information. Just pick which 2 you want to use, and you can use sine, cosine, or tangent here. You can use any of them. All right, so that's your first worksheet. Your second worksheet, it's just a little bit extra. We're going to talk about angles of elevation and depression. So they have little notes for you up top, and then they just have some exercises for you to do at the bottom. Angle of elevation, you'll always have a line of sight, so that'll be straight out, and then you'll see the line going up. Okay, here, angle of elevation, you have that line of sight going straight out, and then you'll see it looking down. Okay, so here, you're looking at this little guy right down here because we want angle 1. Here's your line of sight straight out, and he's looking up to a plane. That would be an angle of elevation. Here's your line of sight, and he's looking down to the boat. So just defining that line of sight and whether they're looking up, line of sight, or looking down, elevation looking up, depression looking down. So that should help you finish off that one. And then here they have a couple word problems, but most of them they drew the pictures for you. If they didn't, you're going to try and draw your own. So let's just look at this one together real quick. Jared is standing 12 feet from a rock climbing wall. So we have Jared. Where's my pen? Let's try that again. We have Jared. We have a rock climbing wall. So he's 12 feet from the wall. He looks up, so there's my line of sight, and he's looking up at an angle of elevation of 56 degrees. How high up the wall is his friend? So we want to know how high up the wall is his friend. There's our triangle. And this kind of goes back to what we were doing yesterday. So we're finding a side length here. We should go back to sine, cosine, tangent. All right, this is opposite and adjacent. Opposite, adjacent, I'm using tangent. Tangent of my angle equals opposite over adjacent. Remember our little rhyme yesterday? When x is up high, you multiply. Multiply both sides by 12. And then you type it in your calculator. So this is just kind of a little bit of review, but putting that word problem spin on it. So you would type in 12, tangent of 56. And we get 17.8, round to the nearest foot. Round to the nearest foot. So we're at 17. 7 tells me to round it up to 18. So 18 feet. All right, so these are more talking about elevation or depression. If they ask you for the angle, remember angles is the new stuff that we did today. If they're asking for an angle, you're going to use those inverse functions. If they're asking for a side length, that's the stuff we did yesterday, very similar to this. Okay, sine, cosine, tangent, finding a side length. If x is up high, multiply. If x is down low, they switch, you know. So that comes from yesterday's work. All right, so you're going to finish this off. Again, there's some notes up here if you need some. But you'll finish this worksheet, upload it. That's one assignment. and then you'll finish this worksheet, upload it. That's the second assignment. Okay? Bye, guys.